Welcome to the morning devotion. I'm Curtis Duncan. Pastor Young Hwan Wan is with us, and he's been here since the first part of July. Pastor, great to have you with us. Let's learn a little bit about you and your family and some other things this week. What about your history in South Korea? That's where you originally came from.
Yes, actually, in South Korea, my family was Methodist, but until when I was 6 years old, we were not Methodist. We were living in a house next to the Methodist church. That's how we became a Methodist at the time. Yes.
How did you decide to become a Methodist minister? Was it the closeness of the church?
Yes, because we went to that church since when I was six. The preachers at the time looked cool to me. Whenever they preach at the pulpit, people say amen or they respond to him, so it looked cool. But later on in my life, as I was growing up, I thought I may be using my gift for something else. Even though I do not become a pastor, there are a lot of ways I can serve God and His people. So I was interested in some language things, computer things, or sports or something like that. But when I was in the last year in my college, I thought, oh, I need to be a pastor because I saw a lot of churches in the world, and many of them were like declining because Christianity is declining these days. So that's why I decided to be a pastor to serve the churches.
It takes that positive, I want to be this. What was your education? You had to kind of expand a little bit education, theology to really get deep into this.
Yes. At first, I went to the Korean Methodist University over there to be a pastor after graduation. But at the end of my college year, I thought, oh, I'd like to study more. I'd like to get more perspectives. So I decided to come to the United States. So I went to the seminary, Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary in Evanston, Illinois.
Glad you did. We'll talk more to Pastor Young, the pastor of the Goodland United Methodist Church, throughout this week. So stay with us and continue to welcome him and his family to the community and to the Goodland United Methodist Church. Pastor Young is with us, the Goodland United Methodist Church. Our devotions are taking a little different focus this week. We're learning about the pastor and his focus for the church. Yesterday we talked about your history and you're coming to the United States and studying in Illinois. Your different churches that you serve. Let's hear the interesting stories about your congregations before coming to Goodland.
Yes, some of you may already know, but if you are a male person in South Korea, you need to go to military service for 2 years. That's a mandatory, the requirement. So first of all, I went to the military service. At the time, I became an assistant to chaplain. At the time, so I was working in his chaplain's office. He was assistant. At the same time, I was serving in the church that my chaplain served at the time. So sometimes when he's gone, I was preaching over there. So I was serving in a military church in our military unit. And after discharged from the military, I began to serve as a children ministry director in a church in Seoul, South Korea, until I came to United States. And then once I came to the United States, Illinois area, I was serving a church. And that church was really special because it was a merged church between a white congregation and Korean congregation. Especially I was serving youth ministry over there. And I needed to serve second generation Korean, the second generation Korean youth students. And first I thought they were just Americans. I thought they were just Korean because they looked Korean. So I was speaking in Korean, but they didn't understand. So later I considered them just American students. So I just spoke English and then approached them as American. But it was still not. They had a second generation identity. So I was learning a lot about uniqueness of each person through the church.
Sure.
And then in last 2 years in my seminary, I moved to a white congregation as a seminary internship. And I learned a lot through which it's still helpful for me as I'm serving here in Kansas area.
And where was that congregation?
Uh, The white congregation.
Yes.
That was still Illinois area, so
Okay.
Northbrook, Illinois. So it was white congregation, and then I moved to Kansas once I graduated from the seminary, and then I was serving 3 churches in northeast Topeka area. So it was just 50 miles from Topeka.
3 different churches.
Yes.
My goodness,
yes.
I would think one would be a major job, but 3 different ones. Well, Pastor, we're great to have you here. We're tickled to have you in the community, and I know that you have some great things planned for our church, our church's family, and to help out in the community. And that's part of our devotions this week, learning more about Pastor Young being with us from the Goodland United Methodist Church. It's time for the morning devotion on the Tri-State Radio Network. This week, we're taking a different approach to our devotions. Pastor Young Juan, our pastor at the Goodland United Methodist Church, and in charge of devotions, but he called on me to help out. We're learning a little bit about him and his ideas for the church, especially in this case today. We want to focus on your views and ideas for the Goodland United Methodist Church's growth. We've been here a long time. We're going to continue to be here. We're growing little by little again. What are your thoughts for the roadway down ahead?
Yes, basically, I'm sorry I don't have a master plan right now, but I can tell you I am developing my idea by learning about community and people. Especially, I personally believe each congregation has its own uniqueness. Because as I told you yesterday, I've been serving 3 churches in Topeka area for 5 years. And even though those were 3 churches, and they were really close each other geographically. So at first I considered them just same people. So similar culture, tendencies, something like that. But more I spent time over there, more I got to know them. And I thought, wow, each church is different, even though they are just 7 miles away. Yes. So I thought, oh, it's not just church. It's even each person has differences and uniqueness. So that's what I learned from my previous experience. So once I came to Goodland over here, it's in northwest Kansas. And I thought, oh, maybe people in western side will be different. And yes, so far it's different. However, I don't want to just categorize all the people in the same category. Oh, they are just Western people, they will be like this. I hate it. Because each person would have different ideas and uniqueness. I call it uniqueness. So I believe I need to know about each person in this community to grow as a church. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I believe for church, any local church, relationship is really important. So for the relationship to be growing and developed, I believe communication is really important as well. So we can grow our relationship through the communication. That's why I am doing this conversation thing. So I believe we can grow together as a community and especially as a church as we get to know each other by communication.
Takes a lot of work because when you and your family move here, there's only 3, and you're outnumbered instantly when you hit town. So
yes.
We're glad that you're here and wanting to learn people, and you certainly work well with meeting the new folk that are coming into the church, and you're wanting to meet them and know them better. Well, Pastor, we're glad you're with us and part of the community. We'll have more morning devotions for you. We've got a couple left, so don't miss out on those on Thursday and Friday. Let's focus for our thank you this time on the Goodland Morning Devotions. Time for another devotion on the network and on our Facebook pages. Our visitor today, the guest, is Pastor Young Juan, Pastor Young, as he says. Remember me, just call me Pastor Young, as he is young, and we're grateful to have you here. You every week have to put together sermons. Do you have a little you draw out topics, or how do you decide what sermon you're going to work with, and how long does it take to put these together?
Yes, thank you for the question because that's what I've been struggling a lot in my first couple of years as a pastor long time ago. These days I have a pattern. I'm really comfortable to prepare for my sermon. I'm not saying preparing sermon is easy, but I know my pattern. So I usually, I like a conversation So whenever I meet people, I initiate the conversation, I enjoy it, and I try to get some insight from those conversations. So maybe even today I may get some insight from this conversation with Duncan. Also, I like to read. So whenever I read books, newspapers, I try to have some the perspective. So whenever I read books or something like that, I'm not just focusing on content itself. I'm also focusing on the perspective. What new perspective can I get? And then I try to use it in my sermon.
Do you rehearse your sermon, or do you have it pretty much in mind already when you start?
Yes, my sermon is pretty much written down on my paper. So I try to memorize it Friday and Saturday.
Yes.
So I have a manuscript always.
All right. Now, what happens? Do you maybe at the last minute change something? Can you rework that? I mean, it's very flexible. Being the minister, it's your sermon.
Yes. So I barely make last minute changes, but sometimes last minute I add some recent stories over there because my sermon are usually prepared for a month. So at this moment, my sermon is prepared until first part of December. So 80% is ready. So at the last minute that week, so for example, this Sunday to prepare for sermon for this Sunday, I am just adding a most recent stories sometimes during this week.
Okay.
That's what I do. And my sermon preparation usually take around 10 hours.
10 hours.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
very good. And they're always flexible.
Yes.
And bless your heart, you always like to say in my closing part, that's a good signal to the congregation. We better get the hymn book out because we've got a hymn coming up.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us today. That's part of our morning devotion. We'll have another insight to the Goodland United Methodist Church and our Pastor Juan. Stay with us. Time for our Friday devotion. They've been a little different this week on the radio. We've been learning more about the Goodland United Methodist Church, Pastor Young Juan. And Pastor Young, today, a couple questions. You are a native of South Korea. Tell us a little bit about what you know about North Korea, a very secret country, I think.
Yes, so I get this kind of question a lot of times from people, but honestly, even I have no idea what's going on in North Korea. Yes, our language and the race are the same between South and North Korea, but other than that, everything is different. So yes, maybe food, even food are different. So yes, there are obvious differences between South and North Korea and people, and especially younger generation these days, some children generation. Maybe they consider North Korea as a different country. Yes, so because it has been a long time since Korean War, yes, still a lot of people have a hope we can reconcile each other, but at the same time, many people are giving up the hope. Oh, they are just different country. So, for example, since I've been in the United States, some people see me, ask me, "Oh, are you Chinese? Are you Japanese?" But I am not, and there are huge differences between those people. I know it because when I was a child in South Korea, whenever I saw the white people, I thought, oh, white people, black people, I thought, oh, they are from America. But now I know as I was growing up, maybe they are from different countries other than America. So likewise, it's still different between China, Japan, South Korea, and more dramatic difference between South and North Korea.
Yes, I've seen a map of satellite map at night of the North and South Korean countries, and the South is all lit up with the bright cities from space, and the northern North Korea is very, very dark, except maybe one or two big cities, and that's it.
Yes.
I want you to tell us about some of your favorite Methodist songs. That's always a great part of going to church and Sunday school.
Yes, so I was preparing myself to sing at this moment for our closing. So I believe that, so you asked me about question about North Korea, and I believe God is still working on us, yes, to divide the country. And I believe we should be in God's hand. So remembering that, I was reminded of, I don't know if this is a Methodist hymn or not, but this is the hymn I always sing whenever I need hope. So maybe everyone knows this song. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. God's so good to me. I believe God is good to everyone, even those who listen to this devotion.
Well, we thank you for being our guest today, and I hope our listeners enjoy this different type of devotion as we have a devoted minister to a devoted part of our community at the Goodland United Methodist Church. Have a wonderful weekend and be ready for more devotions and more sermons coming up here.